This next upgrade is going to be absolutely huge. We also learned how to do tests on a mainnet fork. A lot of very interesting things are happening to IBC currently. Actually, the next step, which terrifies me a little bit even.
Welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning back into the Bare Metal Podcast. I am your faithful Ship the Code from Rockaway X, and today I'm bringing you Andrei Zavgorodnii of the Neutron projects. Welcome, Andrei.
Hello, nice to be here.
So, can you please give us an introduction, to yourself, and then tell us what Neutron is? How did you get involved with Neutron?
All right. So yes, my name is Andrei Zavgorodnii, and I am the CTO of Neutron. I mainly participated in writing code for Neutron before the launch, and currently I am working more with the roadmap, with the processes in the team, and so on and so forth. Because I think that one of the main things that blockchain after its launch should be focused on is providing good experience for its users and for the builders that build their protocols on top of the platform. And that is basically what I'm trying to ensure.
Great. Can you tell us sort of more about Neutron itself? If you had to explain it in a nutshell, I mean, Neutron as a project, what does it do?
Yeah, of course. So Neutron is a smart contract platform that is interchain secured by Cosmos Hub and is built with cross-chain functionality in mind. It provides two main benefits to its users and builders. First one is the best economic security because it uses the validator set of the hub to produce its blocks. And the second thing is it's application specific or enshrined, if you prefer this word, infrastructure, such as the Duality modules, Block SDK, cron module, the upcoming in-protocol Oracle, and all of those things basically allow protocol builders to implement sophisticated interchain applications.
Would you call Neutron would you think of it as a general smart contract platform, or do you think it's more geared to specific use cases? In my mind, I'm thinking of like, say Network says, we're focused on DeFi applications because we're all about speed and, we want to have lots of block space. Is there a use case for Neutron like that, or are you thinking, anything goes?
I think that Neutron this is my opinion, but I think that Neutron is a general smart contracts platform, but what Neutron is focused on is basically allowing smart contract developers to build protocols that are essentially interchain. And Neutron is probably the best platform to build such an application nowadays.
Right, precisely because of that integration you were talking about. Oracles are being available I'm sort of thinking of this out of the box. If I'm writing a smart contract, I can use those.
Yeah, this is something that is upcoming. I'm not exactly sure if I can tell you when this is going to launch, but it is going to launch soon. Yes, this is going to be an in-protocol Oracle. I'm not sure that I can say that, but one of the teams in the ecosystem is helping us to build it, and basically it is going to rely on ABCI++ functionality to create an in-chain oracle that will be fed with information by the validators, with the vote extensions and so on and so forth. I don't know whether you know what that is, but I can.
Can you tell us about vote extensions? I don't think we've been discussed this on the podcast before.
Yes, actually, it is a very interesting feature of ABCI++, and it basically allows a validator to attach any kind of information to their vote, and then it basically provides you a set of callbacks into the usual Tendermint flow of producing the block with the pre-votes, votes, pre-commits, commits, and so on and so forth. And then the validators can, on that level, agree on a certain kind of information. For example, you can imagine that every validator is going to query for real-world data about the price of a certain pair of tokens, and then they're going to provide their price values with the vote extensions, and then those those price values are going to be aggregated in protocol, and a final deterministic value for a certain pair of assets is going to be calculated and then written to the storage of the blockchain. So if you're wondering whether or not this is like weird, or maybe there is some security issues, because of course the real world values that the validators get from the outside, they can be different for each validator, then yes, there is indeterminism, but it is allowed on certain stages of the IBCI++ workflow, so to say, but it is then removed or eradicated on the later stages when the vote extensions are aggregated.
When the consensus happens. So the way I read your description is that vote extensions are repurposing of the voting logic for blocks to other pieces of information.
Yeah, you can basically attach any kind of any sort of information to existing primitives in Tendermint. For example, like other uses of that would be maybe providing information about existing data attestations for certain blocks on Celestia, for example.
Mm-hmm. This sounds very similar to what oracles do, but they do it outside of, say, the blockchain logic, right? So they also get different values, they aggregate them, and then they commit a transaction. Except the consensus happens not outside the chain, but sort of the determining of the common value or the agreed upon value, let's say.
Yes,
happens inside the block processing logic.
The difference, though, is that with standard oracles, it is a little bit hard to ensure good behavior from the participants of like a multi-party oracle, right? While if this is baked into a blockchain, we can actually slash for misbehavior, for example. I'm not saying this is how it's going to work from the get-go, for example, with this oracle, because this is, of course, a very new thing, right? I don't think that it is like extensively used anywhere yet. So, of course, this is not going to be something that we just propose to our validators with no prior, discussion and debates even maybe. But yeah, in theory, you can actually enforce certain types of behavior, which is usually not something you can do with the regular oracles.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. In protocol, oracles available for everybody. Essentially, you don't have to pay, say, extra funds to actually get the oracle data on chain. That definitely sounds good for protocol developers. If we go, one stack level up, what was the motivation to start building Neutron? Because there are certainly other projects that were building, let's say, general purpose, WASM-based, smart contract platforms. Were you guys focusing on some projects you wanted to support, or did you feel those solutions wouldn't work for you?
Yeah, actually, when we started, like this whole thing started when we were trying to build a cross-chain liquid staking protocol, actually. And while the architecture of the liquid staking protocol itself was, at least at that time, clear to us, we were less experienced then, and so we thought that it is clear. We soon realized that even if we build this protocol, it is not exactly clear where to launch with that protocol, right? Because there is basically three limitations that we saw almost, everywhere in the ecosystem. To a certain extent, each of those limitations apply to any of the existing platforms. The first one was the lack of economic security. The second limitation was maybe I should put it like lack of cohesive infrastructure for building a sophisticated protocol like liquid staking that works across multiple chains. And lastly, there was a problem of how do I put this? There was a problem of ecosystem alignment, I would say, in the sense that if you're building an interchain protocol, right? you would probably, it basically, I mean, an interchain liquid staking protocol, it basically manages staked assets from multiple chains on that, inside that protocol. You would want that protocol to exist on a chain that would be aligned with the rest of the ecosystem, right? So for example, when Terra existed, Terra probably was not the best example of a platform that was aligned with the rest of the ecosystem, right? Due to various reasons. So yeah, we saw those limitations almost everywhere. And at some point we just decided that, well, if we do not see a place where we could launch, we should probably create such a place for ourselves. And so, yeah, this is how Neutron started.
So that's why the strong focus on, say, interchain accounts, interchain queries, and all this sort of IBC-based infrastructure from the get-go. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly. That was the part of the limitation. Like this is about the limitation of not having the adequate infrastructure for a sophisticated enough protocol that is an interchain protocol.
If we shift focus to what's being built around Neutron, you guys have been online for a while now. What would be some projects that you think are interesting that they're building or about to be released? I was looking online. I found on Twitter an announcement about Nexus Bridge. Seems to be very fresh.
Yeah, Nexus Bridge.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's a very interesting project because it basically allows to bridge TIA tokens to rollups on top of Neutron, and I very much like this bridge because it uses the hyperlane architecture, which is a very generalized architecture for any type of bridge, basically. And we were able, like on Neutron, it was possible to build essentially a one-click user interface for such transfers of TIA tokens, because basically the only thing that was required from a user was to issue an IBC transfer on Celestia, and then through the use of IBC hooks, this IBC transfer was basically rerouted to a hyperlane smart contract on top of Neutron, and then the rest happened automatically. So yeah, it was a very nice like a showcase of what hyperlane can do, and we have actually more plans for hyperlane in terms of the wrapped staked ETH bridge. We have an idea to build a bridge that is going to be basically a generalized bridge that is going to rely on several bridge providers such as Axelar, Wormhole, and is going to aggregate their commitments, so to say, and to use the security of both of those bridges to pass messages.
Mm-hmm. So would it be fair to say, the bridge built on top would be in some sense as strong as both of the underlying bridging infrastructure? Like, are you trying to sort of like build, let's say, aggregated security, or what's the purpose of using multiple providers?
It's kind of like that. Basically, Hyperlane allows you to, it gives you a lot of freedom when it comes to the choice of the particular security model that you want to use. There is basically, for example, there's going to be a smart contract that is going to be the interchain security module, as they call them, dedicated to the Axelar side of the deal, so to say. There's going to be another one that is dedicated to the Wormhole side of the deal, and then there is going to be on top of them an aggregated interchain security module, which can be fine-tuned the way you want. For example, you can make it a 2 out of 2, right? You're going to probably you're going to sacrifice liveness for security, right?
And latency, possibly.
There is a lot of various ways to build your security model.
Okay, that seems an interesting piece of infrastructure to have. What other projects are sort of top of mind in terms of Neutron?
Well, the most obvious one that we're currently working on, and it's like an in-house project, essentially, it is LIDO and Cosmos that is going to launch on top of Neutron. I don't know whether we should go into any details there, maybe Kai Tudin, my colleague, he is the I think his position is Chief Technical Innovation Officer in Neutron. We are basically, we've been working together since the very, very beginning of this whole thing. So yeah, and he is currently responsible for everything LIDO related. And the other thing that comes to mind is the Shogun. I hope that I pronounce it correctly. Project that is basic. I'm not sure that I can give you a lot of information about Shogun, but as far as I understand, it basically allows you, like, if you want to swap some tokens, for example, right? And there is another person who wants to swap a little bit less of those tokens, like you want to buy them, they want to sell them, you want to buy 15, they want to sell 10. What Shogun allows you to do is it allows you to first do a kind of like a peer-to-peer exchange of the amount that is available. For example, if you want to buy 15 and want to sell 10, then you'll get the 10 from that person. And then it basically reroutes the rest of it to, I don't know, a DEX, to some smart contract that can do the exchange for you.
And the idea is this would be cheaper for me, the user.
Yes, of course. And it kind of prevents...
I was just wondering whether that, the advantage for me in using Shogun would be that this is for some reason cheaper because, let's say, the P2P match. So this is order matching between users that want to participate in the market. I'm thinking in my head, I'm sacrificing some latency. The swap doesn't happen immediately, but there's some sort of I can say I want to wait for a match up to X minutes, and then something's going to happen. Or is there like an order book of
I think, to be quite honest, that there is no latency there. I'm not gonna give you any statements about that, because not that I am very much invested into the architecture of their protocol, but I think that it's basically, if there is an existing pending offer from the other side that can cover your needs, then it's used. And if it's not, then you just use the traditional DEX. One of the things that are probably good about this approach is that I think it sort of helps you to mitigate MEV,
Well, hopefully at least partly. In the P2P match, I would expect that,
exactly.
that you're matching between two, let's say, of the less informed participants. It's not, unless market makers get in there again.
Oh yeah. Well, there is always room for exploiting certain aspects of protocols.
Right. Anything? So we talked Nexus Bridge, we talked about LIDO and Cosmos, we talked about Shogun. Is there anything that comes to your mind, or is this covered the sort of near future?
I think that this is the nearest future, or of course we should probably mention the fact that Duality is going to launch. It's an order book exchange. It is going to launch as part of Neutron. It's going to be several modules that we're adding to the binary. And this is going to happen very soon. I think the upcoming month when we have the network upgrade, the next network upgrade.
Is there already a proposal on chain, or?
I don't think that there is a proposal on chain yet. I think that there is a couple of things that I wanted to say here. So this next upgrade is going to be absolutely huge, and so we wanted to test everything as thoroughly as possible. And I think that there has been a lot of progress internally that we've made in terms of quality assurance, because we do huge corridor testings, we do tests on the test net, and we also learned how to do tests on a mainnet fork, which is a very, very, very nice thing to do. Like we usually not just right before, several times before that, but even right before the upgrade, we will just basically check that with the on-chain data, the upgrade goes well, which is very good. So
I'm thinking in my mind, you can simulate the upgrade.
Yeah.
You can simulate the update and see if the logic would all, check for panics or for error conditions.
Exactly.
Before you then roll it. Man, that sounds.
And so we did that a couple of times already, and the upgrade was supposed to happen like late November, I think, initially, or optimistically. But we did all of those testing routines, and we found like we were able to find several issues with the dependencies that we have, maybe with the modules that we have, and that basically delayed the upgrade by a month or even more. But I think that it's better to launch safe than fast.
Yeah, that sounds like a statement that anyone can agree with. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there a builders program, or are you guys, do you have like an ecosystem fund to support builders? Are you somehow, wanting to attract new protocols to come to Neutron?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, well, I'll start with the basic things. Basically, there is a very nice community. There is support from the technical team. There is the technical builders chat. You can, if you're a builder, and you build on Neutron, please make sure that you join that chat. You can find it in the FAQ section in the Neutron docs.neutron.org. We actually answer questions there, and we try to talk to various teams about their experience. For example, huge shout out to Nolos, because they helped us identify certain issues with the existing implementation that were addressed in the upcoming upgrade. So yeah, there is basically that. And from the other side, from the more like organizational side of this, there is a grants program that recently launched, which you can apply for a grant if you're a protocol builder. And there is also specialized grants for auditing existing implementations, existing protocols. If you're a protocol and you want to get a subsidy for an audit of your code, and we encourage everyone, of course, to audit their code. We do. Then yeah, you can apply. You can apply for that. So yeah, there is actually quite a lot of things that we have, and also, of course, there is documentation. I think that one of the senior engineers in the team was recently assigned the task of completely overhauling the documentation and making it like the best documentation available in the ecosystem. So yeah,
Happiest guy on the team, I expect.
In a way, but this is actually a very hard thing to do. We have to.
Oh yeah, 100%. Look, all jokes aside, first of all, it's super useful. Obviously, to have important docs. Just want to be clear there. Want to have solid docs and up-to-date docs, right? I mean, the best thing for a dev is looking at outdated docs and thinking, why isn't this working? And then looking at the code, going, oh, those docs don't apply yet. So yeah. Look, totally. I was joking, since a lot of the devs sometimes think of writing documentation as the less sexy part of development, but it is absolutely 100% important.
I would say that developers in general can be divided into those that like writing texts, just texts in general, and those that do not like that. I personally loved writing texts. I absolutely adore this thing. I think that a beautifully written technical specification is a work of art.
Okay, I think there's a whole episode in there, but I just want to keep focus on Neutron, because we could go down the rabbit hole of dev work and what makes sense and when it makes sense. But I wanted to go back to Neutron. You mentioned security several times and ecosystem alignment, and you guys have become an ICS chain. I'm curious about the calculus that went into this, right? I mean, when we were starting the project, like, did you guys already think, okay, we're going to build interchain infra, we need to be secured by Atom, that needs to happen for us to have credibility? Or, did this happen later? How did this work? And then the obvious next question is, you've had at least a few months, right, to get to build experience. I'm wondering if you're seeing any sort of gives and takes that happen around ICS. So just like this whole issue is interesting from the get-go. So give us the skinny. I'm curious.
Yeah. Addressing the first question, the first part of the question, just as I mentioned, we were thinking about security, and we realized that if you're a protocol that manages state assets from from other chains, then you gotta be secure. Like, otherwise, this doesn't make any sense. So that was, of course, one of the issues that we had in mind. And then I think it's safe to say that it was a little bit of a fortunate coincidence, like a fortunate sequence of events that ICS was almost ready at that time, and that we could start building Neutron with that in mind. We didn't actually originally we did not use ICS modules in Neutron. We were building it. I mean, we knew that we were going to be an ICS security chain, interchain security chain, but we didn't build it as such because the modules were not ready yet. That's just the truth. And so moving on to the next part, to the second part of the question, I think one of the like drawbacks that we experienced was essentially this, and it was inevitable. We were the first chain to launch as an interchain secured chain, and so literally several security fixes were applied to ICS modules like a week before the launch, maybe even days before the launch, right? So that was a lot to go through.
We can call it exciting.
Yeah, it was
exciting time.
Lots of excitement. Yes, that's right.
I still remember, by the way, the first blocks produced. I was looking at the Explorer. It was
yeah. The launch was not without issues, of course, because like it took us, I think, almost like 30 hours to fully launch, which was nerve-wracking. But anyway, yeah, related to that, if it's like moving away from just like the fact that it was the first chain that launched on ICS, there is of course certain drawbacks. For example, let me think about this. There is the issue with the potentially missing 5% of the voting power, because Neutron launched with the soft opt-out option that basically allows the lower 5% of the validators not to participate in the block production. And this, I'm not saying that all of them are not participating, but in theory, this offsets basically the requirements for your for the amount of the voting power available by a certain amount of percent, right? And yeah, that's probably one of the things that you need to keep in mind.
Let me understand this. I'm not sure I get it right. You're saying, I understand the part where bottom 5% of voting power doesn't need to participate, but does that mean that by default, the maximum voting power online for Neutron is 95%, or that the economics, sort of the quorum is computed from the 95%?
No. It means exactly what you said first. Like in the worst case scenario, only 95% of the voting power is going to be present on the network. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so there's in some sense less less margin between the required 66 plus 60, 2/3 plus VP.
It's like it's still the same 67, let's say 67% requirement, 67% threshold, but it is a little bit harder to get there basically because some of the validators can just not attend to an upgrade, and well, you cannot do anything about that.
Right. That's a question I had. We do a lot of monitoring around, validation and validators and various metrics. We don't actually track any of the ICS chains yet. So I'm wondering, does it happen that the Cosmos validators, let's say, they still produce Cosmos blocks, but they don't actually produce Neutron blocks? Or like, do you see that they have difficulty running the second node as sort of like the sidecar to the Cosmos node they're running? Do you see some sort of service impacts there?
I would say that outside of the events of an upgrade, or of the events of, we unfortunately had a very unexpected chain halt at some point, which we were able to deal with quite quickly. Outside of such events, the lack basically of the validators that logically follows from the soft opt-out is not something that like affects us at all. So basically the day-to-day operation of Neutron is pretty much fine, although there is actually one issue that is going to be fully fixed in the next upgrade, and that is basically every several days, due to the way that the ICA modules are implemented, and not ICS modules are implemented, we experience an increase in latency in the block production, because every block sign window interval, there has to be some processing done of the slashing of the missing blocks information. And in the current implementation, the missing blocks info, the missing blocks data is saved in a very not optimal way. And basically, you need to loop through a lot of elements in an array, which basically slows down everyone. But yeah, there has been some optimizations that were introduced, and they're included in the next upgrade. So yeah.
Yeah, this happens on some chains, right? I mean, Osmosis has a slow block, I think, every day when they're computing rewards and redistributing. So that's a lot of iteration, in the key value DBase, which is not ideal.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah. So zooming out a little bit, out of now the ICS landscape, I'm curious, is Neutron what it wants to be now, or do you guys have like a vision of what Neutron is supposed to be and a roadmap to get there? Now that, we've been talking a lot about cross-chain infra. It seems like you've done a lot of work on this. You've integrated ICS, ICA. Is this it? Or will there be a, let's call it Neutron 2.0 towards which you're sort of now aspiring?
I think that I'm, of course, not the best person to talk about the like long-term plans of Neutron, but in my opinion, what I would like to see is basically where Neutron creates this sort of environment for both the end user and the protocol builders that allows them to essentially forget about the fact that the operations that they are performing on this platform are actually affecting several different blockchains and even ecosystems, because we do have a lot of plans that involve different ecosystems, not just the Cosmos-based ecosystems.
Can you talk about some of those ecosystems? Obviously Ethereum comes to mind, but are we talking maybe Avalanche, maybe Near, maybe Polkadot, maybe?
I personally have been much more involved in various joint projects with Celestia recently. So yeah, I'll probably say just that. If you want to learn more about like the long-term plans of Neutron, you should probably better talk to Avril.
All right, that sounds like an invitation. All right, so this was a tremendously interesting chat. Thanks very much for coming on, Andrei, and fingers crossed that it's going to be as easy to write cross-chain smart contracts with cross-chain effects as it is to write smart contracts contained to one chain only today.
Yeah. By the way, there is actually one topic that I just remembered. I don't know whether you know a lot about IBC and various extensions of IBC, but I think that there is, in terms of the future of interchain computations and so on and so forth, a lot of very interesting things are happening to IBC currently. IBC itself is a very nice protocol, right? It allows you to have IBC transfers, interchain accounts, and so on and so forth. It's amazing, but we can see that on top of it, there is various interesting extensions emerging, such as the packet forward middleware, which allows you to build multi-hop routes for your packets. And there is another one, which is the IBC hooks, which basically allows you to, and it works in a very funny way. You just input raw JSON into the memo field of your packet, and then this triggers just the execution of any arbitrary message, right, on the receiving blockchain. And so
I don't know how this works. So IBC is always a welcome topic on the podcast. It underpins lots of the Cosmos infra. So let's dig into that for a bit. So there are basics. IBC is a protocol for transferring packets, right? And on top, there are various applications built. So fungible token transfer, then there's NFT transfer, and additional logic. We're talking about the packet relay middleware. And the IBC hooks part, I don't think was discussed on this pod, and I don't know much about it. So it sounds really interesting. Once you can react to an external message, that's almost like sort of Oracle-like, right? I mean,
that's absolutely, yeah. I think it's outstanding, and there is actually the next step which terrifies me a little bit even. So IBC hooks allow you to basically add a memo, which is a JSON string with a particular structure, which allows you to make the relayer execute a certain message while submitting the packet. For example, you can call a smart contract. This is how the Nexus Bridge works, by the way. You provide a memo that goes with the IBC transfer, and it automatically triggers code execution on Neutron of one of the
So the memo itself has to contain a valid transaction JSON,
Yeah.
like MSG execute plus parameters or whatever.
I think it's a little bit. I think I don't know. Yeah, we can assume that yes, it's basically just a valid message. For example, a message to the WASM-D module that has to route that message to a particular smart contract and call it with the following arguments or the following parameters.
So this would require, like in the begin blocker or end blocker, or I don't know how that's going to work in ABCI++, but somewhere
works,
like at the...
Yeah, I think it works as an IBC middleware, actually.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I think that it also works as an IBC middleware. I might be wrong, but I think that it is. I don't think that this is processed in the end blocker or in the begin blocker. And now, there is this very interesting problem. I know that there is some efforts to make packet forwarding middleware work together with IBC hooks, which creates very interesting implications, because in the packet forwarding middleware, the basic assumption is that if something happens along the route, you need to roll back things. You need to roll things back, right? Some chains can explicitly say that, for certain actions there is going to be no rollback, but for example, if you combine those two things, right? It is going to be absolutely not clear how exactly to roll back the state, for example, of a DEX, right? If something was swapped.
Since the whole thing's async, you can have processed a couple of more blocks. This sounds, yeah.
So this is very interesting, and basically the idea that I wanted to mention here is that, in my understanding, in the future of IBC and interchain development, a lot of discipline and accuracy is going to be required from a protocol builder.
All right. Well, that was an interesting sort of call out there at the end. So yeah, I hope IBC sounds like it's going to be, it's becoming more and more flexible, and it's really sort of shaping itself up to be the backbone of the interchain.
That's true.
So fingers crossed that happens, and we export it to all those ecosystems.
I agree. Very much agree.
Well, thanks very much for coming on today, Andrei. It was a
Thanks
great
for having me.
And fingers crossed everything works out with the
Thank
upgrade.
you. Have a good day.